Hi, welcome to Let's Talk, where we tackle subjects that matter to all of us. Today we're talking about kids and money. According to a University of Cambridge study, children's money habits are formed by the time they're 7 years old. That's second grade. Now, if that's true, when should we start talking about money with our kids? Today's guests have a lot to say about that. Ruben Ramos is a dad and teaches history and also financial literacy, so some firsthand experience with kids and money. Speaking of firsthand experience, this is Allie Daly, and yes, full disclosure, she is my niece, and she wishes she had had a course on handling money before you went away to college, don't you? And this is Justin Bridges, a man with a plan, a financial plan, that is. Justin has a background in money and finance and teaches a course on money basics on the popular website Skillshare. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
First question. When was the first time you ever knew about money?
Kindergarten.
How,
Was a Catholic school.
oh, okay.
And so my parents had to pay the tuition. And so I was the only one in my family to go to Catholic school. And so I always heard everyone saying about how lucky I was to have this opportunity to go to school when I was younger. So from 4 years old, 5 years old in kindergarten, felt a little bit pressure. My parents were working so hard to sacrifice for me to go to Catholic school.
Wow, that was big pressure for a 5-year-old. Allie, how about you?
I think the first time I kind of realized how important money was when I was about 10, 12 years old.
How did that happen?
That happened because my parents were fighting over money one day, and I didn't realize how expensive bills could be. And
So they were discussing bills.
Yeah,
Because
discussing.
I know your parents and they don't fight over money.
yeah, it was more so discussing bills. Yeah.
Discussing bills, which
Yep.
can really be very, very hard for people to do.
Yeah.
Sure. And how about you, Justin?
I'm gonna have to go with 8 or 9, probably when I wanted to buy my first game console. My dad taught me the value of a dollar very, very early, and I realized that I was gonna have to work for anything I wanted. I couldn't just raise my hand and get something.
Good for you. Okay, that's great. What about handling money? How would a course in handling money have helped you all when you were 5, when you heard them discussing bills, or when you were saving up? How would something have helped you?
A class helping
Yes.
you? I think it developed self-discipline in some way, shape, or form of being cognizant of how hard you have to work to earn the money, and how that hard work and earning the money makes you a little more frugal in spending that money and being careful with how you spend it.
How important is it for kids to understand how quickly money can disappear? Allie, how about you?
Growing up, I didn't really understand the meaning or how important it was of having money and saving it. I always kind of had it and blew it right away.
Really?
So, yeah.
Now, I remember you as a saver until you got
Yeah.
to college. So tell us what happened.
So, I don't know, in high school, I didn't really see anything I wanted to really spend money on. I couldn't really find anything. I didn't go out. I didn't eat out a lot of times, I didn't do that. But when I got to college, I kind of just discovered a lot of things and,
A lot of fun things.
a lot of fun things.
That
Yeah,
cost
exactly.
money.
Yeah, that costs money, basically. So that kind of put me into a downward spiral of using my money. So
Now, when you went away to school, because I
Yes.
remember she worked all the way through high school,
Yep.
you saved up your money, you were lucky enough that your parents were paying for your school.
Yep.
So you had, quote, spending money.
I
And
did.
that's exactly what you did with it, right?
Spent all of it. I came home
how
after
long?
the year with about $1,500. I went away with about $8,000. So
So you spent $6,500 on fun.
yes,
And that is a lot of money.
yeah. After 1 year, yeah.
1 year. Justin, what do you have to say about that?
It's tough because I think when you learn very early on that being able to afford fun or items or toys or whatever costs something, that you have a sacrifice you have to make, it makes it a lot harder to give up, say, $6,500 when the time does come up.
But how typical is Allie's experience to other kids that all of a sudden find themselves without somebody saying, no, you can't have that or put that away? I mean, how typical is that?
I think it's incredibly typical. I mean, the thing about college is you get these refund checks at some point, and nobody's there to tell you, hey, don't spend that. You could put it forward towards the next semester or books or whatever. And so kids automatically just think the cash register appeared, and without that financial training very early on, there's no way to sort of get around that unless you just happen to be a typical saver instead of a spender.
One of the biggest differences between Allie's experience that she had cash when she was entering college. many times credit cards are first introduced to college students their freshman year
That's
on
true.
campuses, and they don't understand what that responsibility comes with. When I spend $100 on a meal, that meal now, when you put interest into effect onto that account, it's now $120 that meal was, or $150. I don't pay that bill back in totality. So
What is
it
a
becomes a bigger
typical?
problem.
What's the typical APR? Which means APR means
Annual percentage rate.
annual percentage rate. What is the typical annual percentage rate of a credit card?
I think you're looking between 16 and 24%,
Yeah,
depending
like
on
And what does that
17.9?
mean?
It means a pain if you run up a lot of costs. I think one of the more important things to remember, and you make a great point about it, is that when it comes to credit card versus cash versus check, they all have different levels of friction. So cash
Friction.
coming out of your pocket, it hurts more because you see your money just actually leaving. When you swipe a credit card, it hits your account maybe 2 days later or a day later, whatever, but you don't have to pay for it until 30 days later. So the friction is a lot lower. It's easier to spend money. Here's a drink here or a dinner with friends here. I'll deal with it later. Cash, you just don't have that money. So when you go to buy the next drink, you might not have it in your pocket. So the friction is either higher or lower, and lower friction items like credit cards, they cause you to run up things that you can't afford.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think typically there's still some cash-only businesses or restaurants around. So I go to that restaurant, I have like $100 on me. That's all I'm going to eat. It's all I'm going to spend. If it's $50 out of my pocket, that's all I'm going to spend. If I have a credit card, I'm going to splurge a little bit more on that because I have $50 in my pocket, but I want that meal. Just swipe the credit card, and you figure it out after that.
Do kids carry cash? Typically.
No, typically no.
Why not?
Because it's easy to have it on a card. I don't know. I feel like that's the main reason.
And
it's
what do
easy
you
to
do
swipe
now?
a card. Now I just carry cash.
Why?
Because, like Justin said, I feel like it's easier to see how much you have on you instead of just having a card and swiping it. Plus, some places only take cash.
When should we start talking to our kids about money?
So I think teaching money, the earlier the better, is sort of what should happen.
What does that mean?
I think, if you can have, as early as a kid can understand what a dollar is and what a dollar can be exchanged for, is typically early enough to start teaching very basic concepts about money. And you can teach your child as much as they can handle. But I think just introducing basic concepts like this is what money is, it's a dollar, it allows you to buy things. If you buy one thing, you might have to sacrifice to not get the other thing. There are needs and there are wants. There are savers and there are spenders.
Oh, the need versus the
basic
want.
things.
Now, you said that when you were a kid, you didn't find a lot of things you wanted to buy. So what made you want to spend this money when you went away to school?
I mean, I think it was mainly the freedom of going away to college and kind of being away from my parents and kind of stuff like that, kind of being on my own,
Sure.
makes sense. But I guess I just didn't really have a grip on how to do that, how to safely spend my money.
What are some of the big questions that you guys get asked about money from kids?
The biggest thing is that how far can this go?
Okay.
Or how can I earn money to buy what I want to buy? And I have students that are 13, 14, 15 years old. They all think they're going to be basketball players, they're going to be rappers, they're going to be big superstars.
Yeah,
But
I
the
know
reality
how
is,
well that
what?
worked out
That's
for all
only
of us.
that's only 0.1% of the population gets to reach that status.
Right.
But so how do we live comfortable lives amongst ourselves? Can I be an accountant? Can I be a lawyer? Can I be in finance some way?
Can I pay my rent?
Exactly. What
Can
can
I have
what can
ice
I
cream?
afford? So there's tools that we try to give them those teachable moments. Like here's $10. Where would you spend this $10 in the store? But
Okay.
only $10.
Okay.
And so what do you can come out with that? What the needs and the wants are.
In your class, what are the biggest questions that you answer?
I think the larger questions are for people who live in higher income or higher cost of living places, how can I juggle two things at once? How can I make X amount of money and also be able to save? Because, if you live in New York, it's really expensive and the average income is probably somewhere around $55,000. It's an expensive place to live. So how do I juggle two different responsibilities? And then the second thing I feel like I always get is how do I get out of debt? Because a lot of people that I meet have already sort of made those mistakes and now they're trying to clean them up.
Okay. What would you say is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is knowing about money for a kid as a life skill?
It's a 10.
Allie, how
It's a 10.
important is it as a life skill?
10.
10 as well for me.
Yeah. Well, it's unanimous, right? So if it's so unanimous, why aren't kids learning this in school? When we come back, we're going to talk about that and a lot more. Don't go away.
Supermarkets can get pretty confusing nowadays. So many aisles, so many products. How can you save time and money when you shop? Get into the habit of buying your store's store brands. You get the same quality as national brands and save at the cash register. No apps, no coupons, just money in your pocket. Give them a try and smile your way through the supermarket.
So before break, our panel agreed that learning about money is a crucial life skill for kids, and that's not a big surprise. And to be fair, some schools do include it as part of their curriculum, but really, they don't all do it. Why don't they do it? Why don't all schools do it?
State testing. It's not something that schools get rated on. That's why I don't do it. What the priorities are to make a school look better is how they're doing on English language arts exams and how they're doing on math exams and SATs. It's not a financial problem isn't on the SAT exam, so they don't feel as a booster to focus on.
Maybe it should be, don't you think?
I would agree.
What would you have thought about? See, somebody said to me the other day, I have to go back for a second. They said they were a high school teacher, and they said all kids at 19 want to have learned something about money when they were in school, but no 16-year-old will pay attention. Is that true? What about you? Would you have paid attention at 16 to a class on money?
I probably would
Why
not
not?
have, because I didn't feel like I needed to know it at that moment, in that time. But I feel like as you get older and you're starting to manage money a little bit better, or you're trying to manage money better, I feel like it's crucial.
When do people start getting overwhelmed with money questions and problems?
I think when you go to next year in college, the biggest expense is paying for college. And a lot of that's done with a parent loan or student loan because not many people have the $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to pay one full year's tuition. So they are taking out loans. That's the big first expense is when they're 17, 18 years old and they're signing that paperwork for a student loan that is costing that much. That's going to 4 years later has to start getting paid back.
Okay, other than college, what's another one?
I think obviously after college, when you can't defer your loans anymore and those things start catching up with you, that's the other pivotal time that I think a lot of people start dealing with real issues. Not to mention if you did run up any credit card debt in college, a lot of people will pay the $20 on $1,000 or whatever, and at some point all those things converge on each other, and you have to finally look at the problem. So I think those are the two biggest times: college and then post-college, and then again deeper in your career.
And what would you say that people, not college, but something else that you're experiencing? Is it credit card debt, or was it not having enough cash, or was it overdraft fees, or what were some of the things that you or your friends experience?
Credit card debt, obviously, that's one of them, but I would say overdraft fees.
Did that surprise you? Did an overdraft fee surprise you?
No, because sometimes I spend more than I had, so it was really frustrating when I would get overdraft fees, but I expected it at the same time. So, yeah.
And then they just pile on, do they?
Oh, yeah. I think at one point I got to like a little bit over $100 in overdraft fees. Yeah. So
What would be some quick advice that we could all share with people in our audience about maybe how not getting into debt in the first place and maybe getting out of it in the second place?
Don't spend what you don't have. Be very cognizant of what your financial reality is, what your income is, what your family's income is, because if you can't cover those overdraft fees, it's who's going to help you out. Are you going to be bailing yourself out or relying on another family member to help you out? So just be cognizant of what your financial realities are and don't overextend yourself.
Okay, Justin?
For those people that aren't truly in some sort of dire income straits, I think that one of the most important things on the financial journey is understanding where you derive your happiness from, because I find that a lot of people spend money on things that they think are purchasing them something, whether it be happiness. I think the longer you are on this earth, you start using your money to purchase your time back. And if we can move that curve up closer to the beginning of somebody's sort of money life, and sort of get them to the idea of not comparing themselves to the Joneses and needing to buy this hot ticket item or whatever it is, or just have more of a lifestyle than you have earned at that point, then I think you get people on a better glide path to a future of retirement, prosperity, all those things that matter.
And Allie, what about you? What would your advice to kids your age be?
I would say just definitely don't spend what you don't have. You know what I mean? So that's the lesson I'm learning here, and
Well,
I'm continuing to learn.
I think this is really a good point. I don't want anybody to think right now that, Allie did all this wrong. Allie, tell everybody where you are today.
Today I'm learning to definitely save money, use it for things that is more of a necessity instead of a want, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm getting somewhere.
And the most important thing, you're out of debt.
Yeah, I'm out of debt.
She's
Yeah.
out of debt.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's a
Thank
huge
you.
thing. for a
Yeah.
lot
It
of
is.
people.
It really is. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And guys, thank you so much for being here and
Thank you for having
imposing
us.
your wisdom about money and everything with us today. We really appreciate it. And thank you all for being here with us today. We really appreciate it. Be sure to visit us here on our YouTube channel or go to storebrandsusa.com for shopping information, recipe ideas, and more. I'm Jody Daly, and we'll see you next time for another edition of Let's Talk.